Bitch!
Hey, where are we? Hey! All right, let's start over. I mean, not the countdown timer. Okay, ready? Nobody's ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome to the Unimaginary Friendcast. This is episode 296. It's a conversation with your best friends, and we are those best friends.
I'm Nathan Von Edmondson.
Aaron Marie, Betty Davis Jr.
And I'm Tom Cruise. That's right, Nathan. I showed up to the podcast. How you doing? How you doing, buddy?
You kind of look like him.
Yeah, you shaved your head, Tom.
I had you in my next movie. All right. Yeah. Don't make me mad. See my face? That means I'm mad. All right.
David, I noticed that you're wearing a shirt that has two guns on it.
That's for the podcast.
Well, our episode tonight is about guns, which is the only thing anyone's ever talking about. Oh my goodness, we have a live listener for the first time ever. Very, very special listener. We'll introduce her in a moment. Tonight's podcast is about what everybody's talking about: guns, gun violence, gun control. What's going on with this country? What are we going to do about it? We are going to decide the fate of this country, right?
Like we always do.
Absolutely, we are.
Come on, guys.
Like we always do. We
Come on,
always
Tom.
solve the problems for everything. Yeah.
All right. But first, we have some news.
Oh, Jesus, this is so hard. Oh my God. Wait, is it? It's hard. This is real hard. This is hard stuff.
David, you have a, what is it called? Multiple choice? tonight?
Yes. All right. Emily, are you ready? All you listeners, because you guys forget to vote. Number one choice is David Monster's going to heaven, and why? Number two, my vote for 2024. Number three, I ain't voting for Biden. Oh, oops. Wait, hold on. Number
away.
No, I didn't. Number three, identity update. And number four, Facebook jail.
All right. Do we get to vote now?
No, we do our news, and then all of our listeners vote. We take a tally. We have to crunch all the numbers.
All these rules.
Yeah.
Nathan, you give your news first.
Sure, I'll go first. We went and saw Macbeth on Broadway, starring Daniel Craig, James Bond.
Wait, say that one more time. Who did what?
We went to Broadway. We were on Broadway in New
Broadway.
York City.
Okay.
We went and saw Macbeth. It's starring Daniel Craig.
Really?
Yeah, it was an excellent performance by he and the other female, the other female lead, the female lead who's actually nominated for a Tony.
For that show?
Correct. It was really great. James Bond played Shakespeare very well. Very talented actor. It was
wow.
to see.
I have a question. You're an actor, right? I have a question.
Sure.
Why did these people keep feeling the need to play fucking Macbeth? Shakespeare was a hack at best. He was not a great writer. Go.
I would suspect that a lot of people disagree with your assessment of Shakespeare. So
not all right.
That's why.
Even at the time, the critics said he was a hack, and he was because he wrote stupid plays for poor people. He's like the Steven Spielberg of today.
But don't
they
always thought about artists that they're always unappreciated in their time?
I can name 5 great artists that are appreciated right now.
Well,
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. I'm a really good artist. Hey, you're getting me so excited there, Nathan. I feel like jumping on a couch. All right.
Okay, I'll give my news next.
Wait, before you give your news, Aunt Josie says, "Good evening, friends. So good to see you. Great topic. So sad. Do we have to talk about it?" Sorry, we're getting backloaded on the comments, so I gotta interrupt. Go ahead with your news.
Thank you for interrupting my news. So you might have seen if you follow us on all the social media, which you should, if you don't, at Unimaginary Friend, we've been blowing up the internet with all of our photos from the film festival that we attended with our film Boxes, which had our Philly premiere on Monday night, which was comedy night, opening night of the festival. Nathan and I got to go since we're here. We are on our East Coast studio, not to be confused with our West Coast studio, which last episode we were at all together. Just so many studios. Pointing, at the poster. That's right.
If you're watching the live stream, I'm pointing at the poster for boxes.
So many boxes.
But the venue was cool. They created this moody filmmaker lounge, had drinks and like weed products, and it was all cool. And there was stand-up comedy. And actually, the little theater that we were in was pretty packed. And we got a lot of laughs.
We did.
There were 4 other films in our block that played, and
people might say I'm biased, but I think our film was the best.
I mean,
wait, did we win anything?
As far as I know, the comedy films are not judged at this festival, but we are up for Best Ensemble Cast and Best Director for the same film in Portland next week. So fingers crossed. There's actually an interview out with me about that film with the Portland Comedy Film Festival.
Where can we find that interview, Aaron?
On the Portland Comedy Film Festival Instagram, actually. I don't know how to really share it broadly, but it was fun. It was actually really fun.
I have a good question for you guys. If artists aren't judged, then how do they know if they're any good or not?
Well, then you end up like Shakespeare.
Oh, he was judged. All right,
awards.
Let's go to the comments. She's vying for #1 fan, and she talks about the #1 fan in her comment. Emily says, I feel like Nancy sitting here watching the podcast with my headphones in while my husband does stuff around the house.
I mentioned that I would introduce who Emily was. We mentioned her a couple times. She's gotten a couple gold stars. I don't remember how many at this point. Probably a lot. But 11 months ago, she started episode 1. And let me remind you, we're at episode 296, and those are not arbitrary numbers. They're in order. We're almost at 300. She listened to every single episode from the beginning in less than a year, and she's still alive to tell the tale, and she's now listening live because she wouldn't listen live before because she wanted to get caught up. As a true super fan,
And yeah, Emily, can you comment somewhere what the experience was like? And then she voted. What? She voted for #2. She voted for the #2 news story, and then Nancy Von Edmondson voted for the #2 news story.
I thought she was saying she was the #2 super fan, which is probably accurate.
And then
fan, right? The poo.
Oh, that's perfect for Emily. Pooper fan.
Ew. And then Emily gave a shout out to Twinkie's grandma, whoever that is. And then, then she said twinsies.
All right.
And Nancy Von Edmondson said,
David, give your news.
Wait, hold on there. We got a lot of comments here.
I think that we're going to actually have to go ahead with the episode, though, David.
Okay. All right, yeah, because I don't know what they're saying. All right, so I guess we voted for #2. There's a lot of really good news stories, and they voted for the worst one, in my opinion. But here we go. My vote for 2024. I ain't voting for Biden. I ain't voting for Trump. And I'm not voting for Harris. All y'all's being played. All y'all's stupid. And all y'all's... I just can't deal, and I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. I don't care what happens. You're going to get the president you deserve in 2024 because all y'all's being played, and you love it. Why don't you guys just stand up and admit that you're fucking idiots and you love being treated like shit? Go. What were you going to say, Aaron? Go. Go.
What is this even news about?
It's just, I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of these presidents getting in there and they're just full of shit. There's 100% full of shit, and they don't give a shit about us, and they do the stupidest fucking things. And then people are still excited about them. And they fight about them, and they fight about who's better and who's worse. They're all bad. None of them give a shit about us. Biden does not give a shit about us. Harris does not give a shit about us. And Trump 100% does not give a shit about us. Fuck you. Go.
Okay.
Oh, Emily Wilkinson said she's voting for David Monster 2024.
No, thank you.
Oh, really? You'd rather have Biden? Okay, I don't know. I don't know what prices.
Can I sleep on that?
I don't know what prices are looking like where you are, but they just keep going up and up and
Why
up.
does everyone think Joe Biden set the gas prices?
No, I'm talking about all the prices. Well, guess what?
Why does anyone think Joe Biden set the price for?
No. He doesn't set the prices for anything, but he said I can't do anything about the prices. They keep going up. But well, you know what I can do is I can cancel college debt. Bitch, you're not going to afford to be able to live in a hole by the time your daughter becomes an adult. Go.
I think cool. All right.
Moving on.
All right.
Oh no, David's got a second vote. I think that means that you.
That's right, bitches.
Oh, no. But
that's
is it going to be Tom Cruise or David Monster? Now I'm confused.
You're making me mad, buddy.
We're gonna go see the new Top Gun this weekend, so we'll have to report back after the next one.
Oh my God, you guys gonna pay money to see that?
We're gonna pay double because we're so excited.
Yeah, because we're gonna buy like 10 seats around us.
Can you please, Aaron, videotape Nathan at the box office saying, "Excuse me, sir, can I play double? Because I really enjoy Tom Cruise. Can you please videotape him saying that?" That has to go on our show somewhere, please.
Okay, maybe for the 300th.
All right. All right. So, are we ready?
Nathan, I'm going to turn it over with our gold star. Nathan Von Edmondson has our gold star this week.
Angeli Rose Gomez.
I don't know
Gomez.
So this individual is it's a bit of a spoiler for our topic, but she was a parent of two students who survived the attack in Uvalde on May 24th. She heard about the shooting, sped in her car over 100 miles an hour to get to the school, then was stopped by police, handcuffed because she was trying to get in to save her two sons, convinced the police that she was not a problem. They uncuffed her. She snuck around, jumped the fence, ran in, and pulled both of her sons out of the classrooms and took them out of the building.
Would they have gotten hurt otherwise?
I would assume, from what I read, most likely not. The shooter was in one particular area and was there most of the time. And it sounds like her kids were elsewhere. But as we'll see in the topic, once we get to it, there is a lot of dissatisfaction of how the police handled this situation, which we'll get into more. But Angeli Rose Gomez, she basically is a badass. And
just badass
on hands and just was like, okay, the police are acting stupid. I'm gonna do something.
And plus, you can't really say that the likelihood of her kids getting hurt because no one knows what that guy's gonna do.
I'm just retrospectively, like what kind of danger were they in? I guess like kick the door down and like push the shooter out of the way and grab them, or like
dude, that would have been awesome.
But
yeah,
but hey, 100%. Like even hearing what happened, 100% for her, 100%. 100.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she just announced that. I apologize. I have a slight cold that's increasingly more coughing, I guess, now that I'm talking, which is unfortunate. So I'll try to keep that at a minimum. But she announced that she has been contacted by law enforcement to shut up, or else she'll get cited for something because she's like drawing more attention to their inadequacy.
Can they do that?
Fuck off.
That seems like it's not legal.
Yeah.
She should sue everyone alive is what she should do. That's the right course of action.
Trying to get justice against the police.
We'll get into some of that.
She should just beat the shit out of everyone.
Well, congratulations. We will mail that out. I think everyone has their gold star by now. I think the mail's a little slow these days, but it'll get there. Emily, you'll get yours and maybe your imaginary second one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the topic. I'm going to turn it over to Von Edmondson over here.
Nate from Von Edmondson.
Okay, so great, hilarious topic for a comedy podcast. School shootings and gun violence and all of that terrible reality that we currently live in.
It's like the only thing to talk about right now.
And don't worry, buddy, I'm there with you.
Yeah, so everyone knows about the Vivaldi shooting at this point. It was on May 24th. 19 students and 2 teachers were killed at Robb Elementary School in Texas.
So many kids.
I thought a good place to start would be, I was really interested in what the timeline of events for this was. I think what's interesting about this shooting is how it feels like our country's motivated, like highly motivated for change. I think after every shooting, people get up in arms, but for some reason, this one seemed to peak a little bit harder and in our calls for action. Do you guys feel that same way?
When this happened shortly after, I remember making a comment, like it felt like a George Floyd moment where everyone was just so activated. But whether or not anything will actually come of it, you can argue whether or not anything came out of George Floyd's death or not. But definitely feels like it's potentially at a tipping point.
Tom Cruise.
It feels similar to other times that there's been shootings in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and 2000s. It seems like there's a lot more now, or we're hearing about them more. You know what it feels like to me? It feels like America is like the Roman Empire, where it's just huge and out of control, and it just feels like it's going to just implode at some point. That's what it feels like, because it's too... Everything that's happening with our fucking inflation and everything is way worse than it ever has been. Like, we complained about it before, but everything is way worse than it has been before. And the fucking Democrats don't know what they're doing. The Republicans don't know what they're doing. Our politicians just throw shit against the wall and then go, all right, and now we're going to do something. Now we're going to do another thing like that. But go ahead, what?
Keep in mind that we're coming off a pandemic that shut down the entire world for 2 years. So this is all unprecedented, and like not necessarily gun violence stuff, but like all the prices and all this stuff that's going on. So this is like a very unique time that's never happened before. So I feel like I give like a little bit more slack to the people that are in charge right now, because like, who's ever dealt with something like this? Like, inflation's, yes, but inflation, because of what happened into the scale, it's a lot. So that's all I want to say.
Yeah, good point. I think I'm gonna try and keep us on topic with the gun violence.
Thank you, Nathan. And
I think so. What we'll do is we'll go through a bit of a timeline of what occurred at Uvalde, because there were things that I didn't realize happened. And then we'll kind of go through some statistics and information about gun violence and mass shootings, particularly in the United States, which I think there will be a few pieces of information I think will be surprising or counterintuitive. So,
and then we're going to solve it all.
We'll see if we get there.
Oh, we're going to get there.
Okay, we're going to solve it all. Okay. All right. So in September of 2021, the shooter asked his sister to buy him a gun, and she refused. So that's kind of where this is starting for us.
So that's a year ago.
Yeah, just about 9 months ago, I guess.
It's like when Emily started the podcast.
Yeah. So early March, he was...
God, is there a correlation? Sorry, go ahead.
Early March, he was making posts about buying a gun on social media. Someone asked him if he was going to shoot up a school, and he tells them to stop asking dumb questions and that they'll see.
And that what is the last thing you said? Sorry.
They said that you'll see. Stop asking dumb questions. You'll see. So on March 16th, he turned 18, and he legally purchased 2 AR rifles, which stands for ArmaLife Rifle, AR, on the 17th and 20th. So he did 2 different purchases. Then he purchased 375 rounds of ammunition, which is a lot of rounds.
That didn't alert anybody at all? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So that's something that, one statistic I saw, I don't think I wrote it down, was that something like 90% of shootings, the weapons are purchased at 5% of providers or something like that, of gun providers, which is a weird statistic. I don't know how that really pans out, but...
It's like Walmart or something like that?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I don't know if it's looking at it as like Walmart is like as one entity. One commentary that I heard that I thought was pretty wise was whether or not we should be putting more attention on the people who actually are doing the sales directly.
Well, yeah. I would say yes if they're breaking the law. But there's a lot of really lax gun laws that they can
Sure.
just sell to whoever. So it's really not their fault. Like, I wouldn't fault anyone for wanting to make a sale of their
Right.
business.
So March 24th was the day of the shooting. The shooter messaged on Facebook a girl in Germany telling her he was going to shoot his grandmother. I didn't know this
Did he?
story about his grandmother. He shot her in the face.
Oh my God.
Stole her truck.
That's right.
And
Did she die?
no, she called the police. I don't know if she died. I don't think she did, but she called the police. So
I knew I liked this guy. Go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
Drove 2 miles to the school, where he crashed into a ditch near the school. There was a funeral happening just right across the street, and 2 men came over to assist the crash, and he shot at those people. They ran away, and he started going towards the school. He jumped a fence.
Was this his school? The kid, did he go there?
I don't know if he went there. That's a good question. I don't know. It was 2 miles from his grandmother's house. As he was walking through the parking lot, he was like firing at the school. So with the police response, there's been a number of things that they said and then recanted later as being false. And we'll do a quick summation of those at the end here. But there was a school district police officer who was there. And even some of this information may have been updated from the articles that I found it on, because there was a range of dates that I was looking at. So I'm not exactly sure that it was a school district police officer. That was the information I saw, who heard that there was a shooter, saw someone, but it ended up being a teacher, chased down a teacher, and just kind of drove past the shooter. Later, the police said that a police officer had engaged. Originally, they said a police officer had engaged with the shooter before he entered the building. And then later we're like, oh, sorry, that didn't happen. He just got in. So at 11:33 a.m., the shooter entered the school and he shot over 100 rounds into classrooms 111 and 112. Police originally reported that the teacher had left a door ajar, but it was later discovered that the door shut, but the auto lock failed. So there was a woman who, I guess she had the teacher had the door propped open with a rock, saw this guy coming, kicked the rock out, the door shut, but it didn't. She
saw him coming with the gun?
Yeah.
Oh.
Police also originally claimed that they engaged. Yeah, I said that already. Okay. So at 11:33 a.m., he entered the school. It wasn't until 12:50, an hour and 17 minutes later, that he was killed, shot and killed. So I'll just kind of sum up the information in between. So what happened was the police, there were police officers who tried to go in, pretty much followed him right in within minutes. But he was shooting towards them. I guess the initial police officers were grazed by bullets. He got into that room, shot 100 shots, and at one point there were like 19 police officers lined up in the hallway waiting to breach. But the officer in charge, after the initial 10 minutes of this happening or so, determined that it was no longer an active shooting scenario, but a barricaded shooter, with the assumption that there were no other people at risk of being shot. So that
Why
he was.
Why do you think that? Do you think everyone was dead?
That I'm not sure of his reasoning, but he has since admitted it was the wrong move and the wrong choice.
Well, yeah, obviously you learn
Yeah.
after, but I wonder if he just had the wrong information.
So during that time period, since it had moved to that kind of that scenario, they had moved it to that a barricaded shooter instead of like an active shooter. They were waiting on backup. They were waiting on more weapons to show up and like body armor and all that stuff.
Okay.
Meanwhile, though, there were multiple 911 calls from students pleading for help from within the classroom. So there were multiple 911 calls that came through. There's video of parents in the street being restrained by the police who were trying to enter the school themselves to try and save their children. I mentioned our Gold Star winner, what she did. So
I know that the teacher in, I think it was 111, survived, got shot a bunch, but he's like speaking to media now.
Okay.
His entire class got killed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, they had enough backup that they decided to, and this is, I guess we'll find out, but the big question is, were people killed during that time period from like the first initial attack to, while they were waiting to breach, was he actively shooting other students?
They would have heard.
But there were gunshots. He was shooting at the door where the police were trying to come through. Regardless of whether, I couldn't find any solid information that was saying that, he killed 5 more people during that time period.
Yeah.
But what's pointed out is, since there was so much time that was waited, they didn't have the opportunity to treat anyone who was in the classrooms. So that's like life-saving time period where someone, paramedics could be in trying to, resuscitate or stop bleeding or whatever. So that's like just tragic. So basically it ended when all of the police kind of lined up, kind of stacked on top of each other behind a barricade. They breached and shot and killed him. So again, some of the misconceptions of the false announcements from the police. Originally, they said that they had him in custody, the shooter in custody, and then had to recant that and say that they killed him. They originally said that an officer had confronted the shooter before he went into the building, and then said, "Oops, no, sorry, no one confronted him. He just entered the building." And again, the lead officer called the situation as a barricaded situation as opposed to an active shooter situation, and wasted a ton of time.
So wait, can we stop here for 1 second? Because we have Aunt Josie says, if you're a parent, can't imagine standing there while your child is inside the school and the police are standing there, whatever the reason. As a parent, I can't imagine it. You guys are parents. What do you think about it? Like, what are your reactions to this?
I've shed tears thinking about this, and I'm trying to do the podcast thing and talk about this objectively, but it's really, 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 really incredibly sad and frustrating and angering and terrifying. It makes me never want to let Cora do anything, that's for sure. But it's just so many lives lost, just so many families destroyed.
Yeah,
it's horrible. I don't know another word. Fucking tragedy. It's senseless for no goddamn reason.
Yeah, while I was reading through articles today, I cried probably 5 or 7 times.
Oh my God.
Different things would, hit me. And I'm an emotional person anyway. I kind of, I'll cry at commercials. I cry at just about every movie I watch, it seems. It doesn't take much to pull on my emotions, but this is certainly heightened by having a child. It's just very easy to put yourself in that situation and imagine, lose, especially these innocent children. So the post you just had up today, there was testimony in front of Congress from survivors of Uvalde, so Buffalo. And this one hooligan mom is pointing out that there was a girl who testified that she smeared blood on herself from a friend to fool the shooter. She said that he looked the teacher in the eye and said "good night" before killing her. So just, gosh, like, of the children that survived the trauma that they've experienced.
Oh my God.
It's just terrible. And some of the descriptions of how what an AR-15 can do to a body, whether it's especially a child's body, and when you're shooting a semi-automatic weapon quickly, as quickly as you can pull the trigger, you're shooting rounds. It's just devastating how much damage is done to a body. So that some of the kids were not recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, that'll probably come up again when we talk about whether or not, because there's a lot of stink about making the AR-15s illegal and a lot of push on the right to not. And I mean, this seems like a pretty damn good reason to not make this a consumer product.
Right.
So much.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can do a lot of damage with other guns, but like.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna deal with that
like
when we have our.
It's like one thing when. And not that I'm condoning any sort of shit like this, but like say this kid had been bullied for years and years and he went to a school and like killed his bullies. There's like some like motive that makes like some sense there. Like he was pushed to the brink of his, sanity, but he just went into a random school and killed like babies. Like not even his own age.
Yeah.
Like fourth graders. Why?
I know that's what. Oh, go ahead.
Like who hurt you? Like maybe go towards those people. I don't know.
My suspicion is that's just the first room he ended up in that school. But still, why would he go to a school with? I mean, the two things that we'll maybe talk about more later. But one is just the odd contagion of why. The thing to do for a certain type of shooter is to shoot at a school, like shoot kids at a school. So there's like this, it's become this like contagion of like what you do. Like we're obsessed with this. If I'm going to go crazy and like, go out shooting, it's going to be at a school. And for some reason, that's just been the like brain worm that's wiggled its way in everyone's head. Easy
targets. Like people packed together that won't be able to fight back.
Packed together, it's like the most amount of trauma.
It's like there's no police, So I know the right's argument is to like not just arm teachers, but to have armed guards in schools. And honestly, at this point, I think that's probably what we need. I think it would deter people.
Yeah,
I know it's incredibly sad that is a reality that we're facing, but.
I mean, oddly though, this event is the one that the counter argument is here were all the armed men who didn't do anything or weren't able to accomplish anything for an hour and 15 minutes.
I there's a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, which will be revealed in time, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, one comment is I just cannot understand why a civilian would need a military-grade automatic.
No,
weapon.
They don't. And I keep hearing this argument that, like 18-year-olds, when they get to the military, they can, like, given those guns and you learn how to use them. But there's, like, way more strict protocol when you're in the military. Like, you don't even have your gun for a while, and there's intense training, and, like, there's, like, background checks, like, all these things you need to actually have a gun in the military. And the argument just doesn't apply. When you're 18, you can just buy this crazy weapon. And for what purpose? Like, you don't use this target shooting. Like, you don't use this hunting. Like, why would you have something like this?
This is an interesting idea that I haven't heard before from Hooligan Mama. I would think we should all start with gun sales. Everyone who buys a gun needs a co-signer, someone who knows that a person is purchasing a gun. So kind of like a social assessment of that individual. I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I guess it can be tricky that, like, if someone feels like they need a gun to defend themselves and, like, the only person that could sign for them is their husband that's abusing them or something, you run into some tricky situations. But,
yeah, when we start talking about solutions, there is a lot of gray areas that you can get lost in. Sadly.
Yeah, I know she said that, like,
really
if someone actually does the big shooting, and the co-signer is responsible, and we'll see how many people actually want to co-sign a gun sale. I mean,
Probably
it's a really, really good point. Good idea.
That is interesting.
That would never get passed in this America. But
I just want to talk about the school thing too, because I think that's the most tragic thing to everybody. Is it was the youngest kids you can find in a school setting, and it's just like. It's obviously the guy has emotional and mental problems, so there's no logic we can ascribe to this. But it's just like our minds are trying to put some solution on it, and it just keeps haunting us because you can't. There's nothing, there's no logic, the only solution is to deal with mental illness. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a reason why, then we could deal with the solution. But because it's mental illness, there's no reason. And in America, we just don't deal with mental illness at all.
So we have a listener that said, that is a thing, Nathan. I needed 3 references that were all contacted in order to get my concealed carry permit.
Oh.
Like a concealed carry permit is probably a more intense process than someone that just wants to buy a gun.
That is way more intense.
But I mean, that's cool. I feel like that's reasonable.
But that doesn't make any sense when you think about it, because yeah, they are concealed weapons, but anybody
legal.
No, but that's what I mean. Like they realize that, oh, we have a problem with concealed weapons, but not weapons. Like any weapon can be a concealed weapon. You know what I mean? Like, so they realize that there's a problem. No, I know for legal reasons, but they know that there's a problem with it. But then they're like, oh, these other guns that aren't concealed, just go buy them. Just go buy them. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know
so what I'm saying is they know there's a problem, but then they're like, never. Like, it's apples and oranges, and it's not. It's in the same fucking ballpark. Actually, a guy who needs a concealed weapon and has to go through the permit process is probably much less likely to hurt anyone with that. So
100%.
So yeah, so it's like, okay, it's fine. Let the 18-year-old go buy a gun. Everybody calm down. God, this is Merica. What are you talking about? So it's like, yeah.
There are certain states, I don't have a list of them, but there are several states, maybe about 5 or 7, where you're not allowed to buy an AR-15. And there are a few states where there are restrictions on buying an AR-15, and then the rest of the states don't have any.
So. Yeah, I mean, so Emily's saying here, buying a gun to have at your home and having a permit to carry in public are different. And so kind of like David was saying, she doesn't agree with the leniency with buying firearms, but there is a difference. Yeah.
There is a difference, but it's yeah. But they see that there's a need for it, but then they just take it off of one and leave it on the other, and it doesn't make any sense.
You're both making sense technically with that.
Yeah, totally.
So another comment, and I think this is a good point to bring up, something that happened in Philly over the weekend. Our DA in Philly doesn't prosecute people carrying illegal guns. So there was a shooting in Philadelphia on South Street this weekend.
It wasn't just a random mass shooting. That was a little different than like what happened in Uvalde.
And there's also we're going to get into statistics very quickly here, but there is discrepancy on what constitutes a mass shooting. Like, what are the criteria of that? So some of the information, it's hard to like get that all together because different types of researchers are using different definitions of what's a mass shooting. But yeah, the shooting on South Street was very. Although there were many bystanders injured and shot, it was like a no, like the people knew each other. There's actual video of the confrontation starting of 2 men approaching a third man. One of the 2 men pulls out a gun immediately and has it by his side before they even get to the third guy. And then the 2 of the guys start scuffling, and then shots are fired pretty quickly, and it escalated from there. And the guy who pulled out the gun, who was considered one of the, I think there were 3 shooters, he died. I think there were 3 deaths in that confrontation, like 11 injured. So that's a totally different scenario. That's like, and actually the kind of violence that is more common with gun violence.
Yeah, and especially in Philly. I don't know if people that aren't from here, that's all the news is the gun violence in Philly. It is like through the roof.
Yeah.
So for probably a whole host of reasons, but.
And statistically, school shootings is a very low percentage of gun violence, which we'll see. So you guys ready to get into some statistics?
Yeah.
Okay. Some big general stuff. So there have been 1.5 million firearm deaths in the U.S. between 1968 and 2017. 1.5 million. That's a higher number than the number of soldiers killed in every U.S. conflict since the American War for Independence in 1775.
I'm just reading this. Gun violence is all in the news in Erie. There was a high school shooting here last month. Ugh.
Yeah. Bring on the stats. Okay.
People want it. People want the numbers.
So I mean, there's so much to cover. This is just a sampling of information, but I thought it was pretty relevant. So in 2020 alone, more than 45,000 Americans died at the end of a barrel of a gun, whether by homicide or suicide, more than any other year on record. That's 2020.
2020, that was pandemic year.
Yeah. The figure represents a 25 increase from 5 years prior and a 43% increase from 2010. So there's been a 43% increase from 2010. Yeah, David. I mean, Tom Cruise.
Do you have stats on other countries too?
We'll get into some comparisons.
Okay, cool. Because that when I looked it up after the Uvalde night, it's shocking. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. On a per capita basis, there were 13.6 gun deaths per 100,000 people in 2020. That's the highest rate since the mid-90s. But it's still well below the peak of 16.3 gun deaths per 100,000 people in 1974. So that may seem a little confusing. So they're saying that the peak of gun deaths was actually 1974 per capita. There's more deaths now because there's just a larger population in the United States. But there was a larger percentage of deaths like for the population back then. So one could argue that gun deaths are actually down.
Okay.
This is pretty crazy. The U.S. ratio has a ratio of 120.5 firearms per 100 residents, up from 88 per 100 in 2011. And that far surpasses that of any other country around the world, with the closest. So we have 120 firearms per 100 residents, which means we have more firearms than residents. Yemen comes in second with 52.8 guns per 100 residents. So they have they have half their population of guns. We have 20% more, 120%.
Got some info about the South Street shooting. A cop shot one of the shooters in the hand while he was firing his weapon on South Street. That made him drop the gun he was firing, and he was arrested at the hospital.
I'm glad they caught the guy. He was at large the other day when last I saw news.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit.
And that's good shooting too.
Yeah. Yeah, get him in the hand.
Well, I mean, he's lucky he hit him at all, really. I mean, the one thing that about training for cops is like they're not trained on moving targets. You know?
Shouldn't they be though?
I mean,
They should be.
apparently cops don't get as much training as we think they should get.
Yeah.
In LA, they get like 6 weeks total. You have to get more training to do someone's hair in LA than you do to shoot them.
I had more training to work from home on a computer.
Exactly.
Okay. So according to the U.S., the CDC, a total of 45,222 people died from gun-related injuries of all causes during 2020. While mass shooting and gun murders generally garner more media attention, of the total amount of deaths, 54% are suicides. So over half of gun deaths are suicides.
I think we're talking about gun violence specifically, right?
So these just like gun deaths, gun violence. It is violence technically.
Okay. I guess I would categorize it a little differently.
Yeah. So here's a comparison with other countries. The U.S. gun death rate was 10.6 per 100,000 people in 2016. 2016 was the last year we had these comparison studies done. So 10 people from 100,000 were killed from a gun in 2016.
David, please.
It's far higher than other Western countries. So in Canada, it's only 2.1 per 100,000. Australia, it's 1 per 100,000. European nations like France, 2.7 per 100,000. Germany, 0.9. Spain, 0.6. However, and it was funny because this information that I'm about to share was not in an article published by the BBC where it compared United States with other Western countries, like European countries. It didn't compare us to countries like El Salvador, Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, and Honduras, where the death rate of the U.S. is much lower than these countries. So we have 10 per 100,000, but in El Salvador, 39 people per 100,000. Venezuela is 38, Guatemala is 32, Colombia is 25, Honduras is 22.
Where are we again?
We're 10 per 100,000. So overall, the U.S. ranked 20th in its gun fatality rate in 2016. So
20th, wow.
Which is still pretty high.
I mean, yeah, I don't like to be compared to like, El Salvador and Colombia. And
right.
It doesn't feel good.
I feel like there is a conception that we are number one.
Of the like
most.
We're number one. We're number one.
Definitely for Western countries.
There you go.
Western and European countries.
I think that's probably the comparison that matters the most.
True.
Hi, Amelia.
Hey, it's Gus.
Yeah, it is weird that David looks like Tom Cruise with a red face.
Gus, he's trying to beat Tom Cruise, right?
Okay. So, what do you think are the percentages of people who support gun control or increasing stricter laws or wanting them to stay the same? So, 52% of Americans surveyed in 2020 said they wanted stricter gun laws. 35% said they should remain the same, as strict as they are now. 11% surveyed said laws should be made less strict. Democrats are nearly unanimous in their support for stricter gun laws. Nearly 91% in favor of stricter gun laws. Only 24% of Republicans agreed with the same statement that it should be stricter. 45% of independent voters think it should be stricter. So the Democrats want to take away your guns.
I heard though that they keep giving the statistic on the news. 90% of Americans want like red flag laws and want background checks and things like that, common sense gun laws. So 90%, like the lawmakers should be doing what the vast majority of people want, but the reason they're not is because those aren't the people that vote. Those are the people that take polls, and they're different. So the actual people that vote are like not 90% in favor of these things. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I want your opinion, Christopher Davis. We don't have to wait for it.
Yeah, so I have just a few more statistics, and these are when we get a little like into the, oh, wow, okay. So fatalities and mass shooting incidents in the U.S. account for a small fraction of all gun murders that occur nationwide each year. They just get the most news. So that's interesting. Are there more shootings? So again, as I mentioned, what constitutes a mass shooting isn't clear or agreed upon. However, the FBI found an increase in active shooter incidents between 2000 and 2020. There were 3 such incidents in 2000. So 3 active shooter incidents in 2000, but by 2020, that figure had increased to 40. So I guess there is an increase in, active shooter incidents at least. And then, everyone wants to ban the AR-15. In 2020, handguns were involved in 59% of the 13,620 U.S. gun murders and non-negligent manslaughters, for which data is available. Rifles, the category that includes the assault weapons, were involved in only 3% of firearm murders. Shotguns were involved in 1%. The remainder of gun homicides and non-negligent manslaughters, 36% involved other kinds of firearms or those classified as type not stated. So handguns are used way more in murders than rifles or assault rifles.
But not in mass shootings. In mass shootings, it's always the automatics, right?
I don't think it is always the automatics. I think it's I think definitely
it's more handguns. Actually, is what I've heard on the news.
I think when we actually talk about solutions, handguns are actually more advantageous. They're easier to conceal. They're easier to carry. And all of these, even the rifles, assault rifles, they're not automatic. They're not fully automatic, which means when you pull the trigger back, it just shoots continuously. You have to pull your trigger. You have to pull the trigger for every time a bullet is shot. That's called semi-automatic.
Yeah.
which can be, people can do that so quickly that it's seems almost automatic. And I think there's actually ways you can alter your guns that basically make it automatic, where it like the recoil of the gun actually like takes over the shooting, so it just kind of seems like an automatic weapon. That's like an illegal. I don't know if it's illegal, but it's an adjustment you can make to your weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we don't have the like mandatory background checks in place for every state. Like it just and like maybe like a 24-hour waiting period before you get your gun, because there's been situations where somebody will get really mad about something, go buy a gun, and then go back to kill them. Like this has happened.
Yeah.
Where if they had to wait 24 hours, maybe they'd sleep it off and have a different outcome in the morning.
Well, I feel like I'm a bad researcher right now because I didn't find like what are the actual rules for buying a gun at this point.
Well, it's so
I think it's
different everywhere you
different.
go. It's hard to.
I can. Oh, sorry, guys.
Go ahead, David.
My father was NRA, and I'm an NRA lifetime member because he bought it for me when I was 13. I can tell you some of the things he said and his friends said, because he was 100% Republican, 100%. Everybody should have guns, and you can't take my guns, and you can't control what I do with my guns or how I buy my guns. Their argument was always that if you register guns and if you make people, if you get all their information and everything, that's what Hitler did. That's what he would name other people too, that before these dictators took over, the first thing they did, and it is true, the first thing they did is they took the guns away. They found all the people who had their registered guns and took them away, and they had no one against them at that point. They just took over, which is true. And there are certain times in American history when in certain places where that did happen too. I never talked to him about mass shootings, and I wish that we had someone on the program who had that same opinion to find out what their stance is on these semi-automatic weapons that can do mass destruction, because what we've seen is there's really only one use for them in our country so far. And I would like to know what their argument is against that. My father...
The argument I've heard for that is that if you're going to go up against your government, if you need to throw the government, you need to have weapons that can rise to the occasion.
Yeah, that's what
it's just exhausting to plan your entire life in like the fear that maybe you'll have to overthrow your government someday. Like, I feel like if that comes, it's like,
just yeah, and it is true, and it is something that it is something that happened, and it is a threat that we have seen in our lifetimes around the world. But it is funny that because my father, like all growing up in my closet and my brother's closet, below our shoes and everything, we always said there was rounds of ammunition. There was just boxes and boxes and boxes of ammunition, of bullets.
Boxes and boxes?
Boxes and boxes and boxes, always, everywhere, under our shoes, and because he ran out of places to put them. And he had a big safe. What are you pointing at?
Boxes, boxes, boxes.
Oh, boxes and boxes, boxes. That's what our movie's about. Now I gave it away. So it's funny because I grew up with that mentality, like ever since I was little, like, oh, you need these because that's what our country is founded on. Our country is founded on people that fought back against the government. And it is true. That is how our country was formed. But I don't know the feasibility of that. I do think that people should have guns. I don't know. Oh yeah, that's it. We're getting these huge comments. I don't know if you want to read them, Aaron.
Yeah, we should read them. I could say so here's a listener. I'm fine with all the laws. I want them to be more defined. What is an assault weapon? HR 8 seems very vague. I know plenty of people who own and carry illegal guns. Homeboy that shot the school that got a background check. I'd like to have the option to take control of a shitty situation, which kind of brings us to the age. Like maybe it should be 21. Like maybe it should be when you're able to drink. Like why? I just recently had an encounter with an 18-year-old. Like college student, and I was like, brain's not fully formed yet, not the smartest people that we have. So maybe we wait a few years until they're a little older. I am not opposed to that. We have another one here, big long one. What about domestic violence, murder, suicide? In an instance where the aggressor got a gun as a hand-me-down from a family member, how do we legislate this? R.I.P. Carrie. That's
so I would just
impossible to do, I would imagine. I'm just going to finish reading it. What's the line? We can't completely get rid of gun violence, but I cannot understand why anyone is against ensuring guns are going into the right hands. Constitutional rights aside, that's another conversation. There's the argument that is a slippery slope, but it isn't that black and white. Ugh. Why can't we all be on this? That. We'll never know.
We'll never know what she was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Inherited guns, passing guns down. If you just gift a gun, like there's no way to trace that stuff, and we never could. And I feel like that's not going to be a useful fight.
So Emily brought up a good point about domestic violence incidences, and I had some statistics that I thought I had put in here but aren't. So every month, an average of 70 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. Nearly 1 million women alive today have reported being shot or shot at by intimate partners, and 4.5 women have reported being threatened with a gun by an intimate partner.
Wait, what about the women that have shot their intimate partners? That's happened too.
I'm sure it has. In more than half of mass shootings over the past decade, the perpetrator shot a current or former intimate partner or family member as part of the rampage. Yeah. So
we have a comment in the male brain. The prefrontal cortex is not fully formed until the age of 25. There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of angles to looking at the solution for this. So, or possible solutions.
Right.
And the thing that it just doesn't have to do with guns. It has to do with there's so many factors. Like even before you get to a gun, even if guns were not made, anyways, go ahead.
So apparently the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that helps curb impulse behavior. It's not fully developed until 25. I mean, that's science right there, people, right? So we have we're going to throw a curveball into the mix.
Curveball?
Because we've been recording for an hour. We're going to figure out the solution of this, but we're not going to do it tonight.
What?
We're going to do it in 2 weeks, part 2. Part 2.
Think of the opportunities.
So we're going to take all this information. Everyone has homework. Everyone, including us. Listeners?
Well, I have the ultimate solution. Spoiler alert.
Until we record again, right?
Yeah, I have to. It's long and involved, and it develops. Everyone has to get involved with my solution. So yeah.
Well, I want everybody to come back in 2 weeks when we record again. We will figure this out, and we will solve this problem together.
Like we solve everything. We solved homelessness. We solved racism. We solved. You're wondering why these things don't exist anymore. It's because we solved them. Soup. We solved soup.
So please, in the meantime, over these 2 weeks, I think this gives us some opportunities. One, we'll learn more about what happened at Uvalde. Specifically, Attorney General Merrick Garland today announced his plans of the review that was of what happened. It's not a criminal investigation, but an investigation of what went right, what went wrong. Similar to Department of Justice reviews that took place after San Bernardino and Pulse nightclub. I'm sure they won't have that completed in 2 weeks, but maybe there will be more information out.
Yeah.
Also, we'll see if our government has taken any steps to make any changes. If there's the political will to do anything at all to, make things more strict, or whether it's background checks or mental health or, red flag laws or whatever the hell shit they're proposing. Also, it gives you an opportunity to send us questions or things that you think we should look into specifically that could be part of the soup of our solution.
And we're definitely going to need Christopher Davis, a gun owner, there. And if any of you know someone who's 100% pro guns and doesn't want any restriction on guns, let us know. Maybe we can talk to them and have them on, and they'll give us their ultimate solution.
I don't know if I know anyone who is pro-gun that doesn't want any restrictions on gun ownership.
Yeah. I mean,
Too bad my dad's dead. Well, it's not too bad. It's
I
actually a
don't want
blessing.
people to have guns.
You know, like Tom Cruise. So he can shoot people in Mission Impossible
Guys,
Part
this is
27.
just all like movies, faults, TV, right?
Movies and TV.
Glorified shooting each other.
It's glorified shooting each other.
All right, 2 weeks. We're coming back. Check out our Instagram, Facebook. We will announce exactly when that episode will pop up, but we will finish this once and for all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the comments tonight.
Bitch, I just want to bang, bang, bang.